Melissa Jenkins hadn't slept. Her 8-month-old son, Liam, had been up half the night burning with fever, and no amount of concealer could hide it. Today was the biggest day of her career, a presentation that could finally mean a promotion, health insurance, and breathing room for a single mother drowning in bills. She kissed Liam's forehead and handed him to her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Wilson. "You go knock him dead," the older woman told her. Melissa needed to believe she could. The subway into Manhattan was packed, but Melissa barely noticed. She was too busy rehearsing her pitch in her head. Hartwell Industries was one of the biggest financial firms in the city, and the junior executive role she was chasing would change everything for her and Liam. By the time she reached the 42nd floor, she'd rebuilt her armor, consignment store suit, hair pulled back, expression unreadable. Nobody at that office needed to know how close to the edge she really was. Jessica Winters was waiting for her, of course. Blonde, connected, and cruel in a way only someone who'd never had to struggle could be. "Rough night with the mystery baby," she said loudly enough for the whole floor to hear. The office had been buzzing with questions since Melissa's maternity leave. Who was a father? Why wasn't he around? Was she even serious enough for this promotion? Melissa swallowed the sting and kept walking. Jessica's parting shot followed her down the hall. "Try not to be late. I already set up a projector for you." It should have been a kindness. It wasn't. Then her phone buzzed. Liam's fever was back. Her stomach dropped, but the meeting was starting. She texted Mrs. Wilson she'd come the second she could, and walked into the conference room with her heart in her throat. The room was already filling when she arrived. Department heads. Jessica cozied up next to the marketing director. Everyone radiating the kind of comfort that comes from never having to prove yourself. Melissa connected her laptop, and the screen flickered to life. It wasn't her presentation. It was a photo from the hospital. Her, exhausted, holding newborn Liam, a moment that belonged only to her. Gasps rippled through the room. Snickers followed. Jessica's face arranged itself into mock horror. "Oh, my wrong file. How awkward." Melissa's hands shook as she yanked the cable free. She had never shown anyone that photo. Someone had gone into her files on purpose. Before the room could fully dissolve into chaos, the door opened, and the conversation died instantly. James Hartwell, the CEO himself, rarely showed up to these meetings. At 42, he had the kind of presence that came from being born into money, but had earned the company's respect by doubling its value since taking over. His eyes swept the room and landed, just for a second, on Melissa. "Please, don't stop on my account," he said. "I thought I'd sit in today." Ryan, the marketing director, tried to explain the technical difficulties. James cut him off. "I believe Miss Jenkins was about to present. It wasn't a suggestion." Melissa found the flash drive in her bag, plugged it in, and somehow, heart still pounding from humiliation, delivered the best presentation of her career. 15 minutes of confident, data-driven strategy. Even Jessica's pointed questions couldn't shake her. When she finished, the silence in the room wasn't awkward. It was respect. "Impressive work, Miss Jenkins," James said, his expression giving away nothing. "I'd like detailed projections by tomorrow." "Absolutely, Mr. Hartwell." As the room emptied, Melissa packed up fast. 3 missed calls from Mrs. Wilson were waiting on her phone. Then James spoke. "A word, please." The door closed. They were alone. "Your presentation was excellent," he said, his back to her, staring out at the skyline. "But I'm more interested in that first image." Melissa's stomach dropped as he turned to face her, and for the first time, the composed CEO was gone, replaced by something raw. "Your son, how old is he?" 8 months, she said carefully. "Born in January," she corrected. Something shifted behind his eyes. Recognition. Shock. "January," he repeated. 9 months after Denver. The room seemed to tilt. Denver. The conference where she let her guard down for one reckless night with a charming stranger who'd introduce himself only as James. No last name, no title. She hadn't found out who he really was until the next morning, by which time he'd already checked out. "Those eyes," he said quietly. "I should have known immediately." "I don't understand what you're implying," Melissa said, though her racing pulse betrayed her. "I think you do." His voice was gentle but unshakable. Denver, the hotel bar. You were celebrating a promotion. She remembered it all. How he'd listened like nothing else in the world mattered. How he'd made her laugh until her sides ached. The way the connection had felt both impossible and inevitable. They'd agreed. One night, no names, no strings. By morning, he was gone, and so was any chance of finding him again, or so she'd thought. That was a long time ago, she said, gripping the table for support. What does it have to do with today? He stepped closer. 8 months old. Born in January. His voice dropped. Those are my mother's eyes. Mine. Melissa, is he mine? Before she could answer, her phone rang again. Mrs. Wilson, voice frantic. Liam's fever had spiked to 103. He needed a doctor. Every thought of careers and confrontations vanished. I have to go, Melissa said. My son is sick. Our son, James corrected quietly. Let me drive you. That's not necessary. It wasn't a request. The authority in his voice was unmistakable now. My car is faster than the subway. She wanted to refuse on principle. But principle didn't matter when Liam was running a dangerous fever. She nodded once, and they rode the elevator down in silence, the whole office watching the CEO and the junior marketing exec leave together, her visibly shaken, him visibly something else entirely. In the car, the questions came. How long have you known? He asked. I've always known it was possible, but we were careful, and then I found out who you really were, and decided I didn't deserve to know. I decided it would complicate everything, she shot back. You're James Hartwell. I'm nobody. Was I supposed to send a company-wide email? You could have come to me. To say what? Congratulations, it's a boy. You didn't even give me your real name. That was for evaluating staff without. The point is, you weren't honest with me. Why would I trust you with something this important? Our child, he said again, firmer this time. Neither of them spoke again until they reached Queens. Mrs. Wilson opened the door, relief flooding her face, until she saw who was standing behind Melissa. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. It's complicated, Melissa murmured, rushing past her to Liam, his small face flushed and miserable. Mommy's here, she whispered, and his cries softened against her shoulder. James stepped up beside her, and the look on his face stopped her cold. Awe, disbelief, recognition, all at once. He has your nose, he said softly, and my mother's chin. While Melissa worried about getting Liam to urgent care, James was already on the phone. Dr. Michaels, James Hartwell, I need a house call. Now. 15 minutes later, a private physician was examining Liam in Mrs. Wilson's living room, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. He diagnosed an ear infection, prescribed antibiotics, and James's driver had them delivered before the appointment even ended. Melissa watched James the entire time, how he hung on every word from the doctor, how his eyes never left his son. This wasn't a man trying to escape responsibility. This was a man whose entire world had just rearranged itself around one small, sick child. Once Liam was asleep, James followed her out to Mrs. Wilson's balcony. Why didn't you tell me? He asked again, hurt threading through the careful control in his voice. I was afraid, she admitted. Afraid of losing my job. Afraid of being the woman who trapped the boss. Afraid you'd just throw money at us to disappear. And I couldn't bear that. You don't know me at all if you think I'd abandon my own child. I don't know you at all, period, she said. One night in Denver doesn't count. You're right, he said after a long pause. But that changes now. He insisted on driving them home, then carrying the car seat up 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, and then, over her exhausted objections, insisted on staying the night. I've already missed 8 months, he said simply. Don't ask me to walk away now. She was too drained to argue, and some small, dangerous part of her didn't want to. She woke the next morning to an unfamiliar quiet. No pre-dawn crying. Panic shot through her until she found them in the living room. James, the billionaire CEO of Hartwell Industries, reading Goodnight Moon to their son with theatrical flourish, while Liam giggled and batted at the pages. Fever's gone, James said without looking up. I gave him his medicine. You needed to sleep. You stayed all night, she said, taking in his rumpled shirt. Of course I stayed. He's my son. For words, and they carried the weight of a promise. By the time she'd fed and changed Liam, James had somehow produced a full breakfast spread from her nearly empty kitchen. His driver, it turned out, was very resourceful. It felt surreal. The city's most eligible bachelor in her tiny kitchen, sunlight pouring over a high chair and chip mugs, looking almost like an ordinary family. We need to talk about what happens now. James said, breaking the spell, custody, support, how we handle this at work. Liam deserves his father in his life. And what about your life? She challenged. Your face is on magazine covers. How does a secret baby fit into that? I couldn't care less about magazine covers, he said, something hardening in his voice. That image is a tool for running my company. It's not who I am. He wiped a smear of banana from Liam's cheek. I grew up with everything money could buy and nothing that mattered. Boarding school at 7, nannies instead of parents. I swore I'd never do that to my own child. I just didn't expect to find out I had one during a marketing meeting. Before Melissa could respond, a text from Ryan shattered the moment. Where are you? Meeting in 20. Hartwell's gone dark too. Monday morning had arrived, and so had the consequences. With Liam still recovering and no childcare available, James made a decision Melissa wasn't sure she liked. They were bringing the baby to the office. CEOs make the rules, he said. And I just made a new one about family emergencies. Waiting at his private elevator was Mrs. Carter, 60-something, composed, James's former nanny, and now head of his household staff. She's not a stranger to me, James said when Melissa hesitated. I trust her with my life. Mrs. Carter took one look at Liam and smiled. Those Hartwell eyes are unmistakable. She'd already guessed everything from one phone call. James's office suite was bigger than Melissa's entire apartment, complete with a security monitor, so she could check on Liam from her phone. The thoughtfulness of it all sat strangely against everything she'd heard about the ruthless, untouchable CEO. In the meeting, Melissa could barely focus, checking the camera feed every few minutes while Jessica watched her too closely from across the table. When it ended, James asked her to stay behind. Once the door closed, he said, I've been thinking about our situation. I believe I have a solution. What kind of solution? Marry me. She stared at him. Excuse me? It's the logical next step, he said, as though closing a deal. It legitimizes Liam's place. Protects us both from office politics. Marriage isn't a merger you can fast-track with paperwork, she snapped. I'm not marrying anyone for convenience. Especially not a man I barely know who thinks he can fix everything with a checkbook. Before he could respond, the door burst open. Jessica stood there, phone raised, displaying a photo she'd taken to the office window. Mrs. Carter, holding Liam. I knew it, she crowed. The baby's yours. Isn't he, Mr. Hartwell? James's expression transformed in an instant. The businessman gone, replaced by something fiercely protective. He crossed the room and took the phone from her hand. Ms. Winters. Taking unauthorized photographs on company property isn't just against policy. It's potentially illegal. Jessica rallied, pointing at Melissa. She's been sleeping her way to the top, using her bastard to trap the CEO. Enough. The word cracked like a whip. Ms. Winters, you're fired. Clear your desk within the hour. You can't fire me for telling the truth. I'm firing you for harassment, invasion of privacy, and violating 6 clauses in your contract. James said evenly. Delete that photo, or our legal team will be in touch. Jessica deleted it with trembling hands and stormed out, the hallway crowd parting in silence around her. James turned to the small audience that had gathered. I value the privacy of everyone at this company, from the custodial staff to the executive floor. That includes Miss Jenkins. And myself. The hallway emptied fast. Alone again, Melissa sank into a chair. She's right that this will be a scandal, she said quietly. Liam's going to be labeled a mistake. The billionaire's bastard. James knelt beside her. Don't ever call him that again, he said firmly. He is not a mistake. Unexpected, but never a mistake. He stood and offered his hand. Now we get our son and go figure this out as a family. That word again. Family. Still foreign. Still impossible to ignore. Once they collected Liam from Mrs. Carter, James apologized for the proposal. It was insane, Melissa agreed. You can't propose to someone you barely know like it's a business solution. You're right, he admitted. But when I saw that photo yesterday, saw him for the first time, everything changed. I grew up as an heir, not a son. I swore that if I ever had children, they'd know they mattered more than any deal. I'd already missed 8 months. I panicked, hence the terrible proposal. I believe you want to be a good father, Melissa said carefully. But marriage out of obligation isn't fair to him. What about parents who were drawn to each other from the moment they met? James asked, who spent one night together neither of us forgot? Who made something extraordinary? That was chemistry and alcohol. She deflected. Not a foundation. Then let me prove there's more, he said. One real date. No expectations. Just a chance to actually know each other. He cleared their schedules and drove them out to his estate in the Hamptons. Private, secure, with a separate guest house, so Melissa would have her own space. Over the following days, a strange new rhythm took hold. Mornings on the beach watching Liam discover sand and waves for the first time. Afternoons with James working remotely while Melissa finally caught up on sleep. Quiet dinners once Liam was down, slowly trading the armor of CEO and single mother for something more honest. She learned he played piano, spoke 4 languages, and hid a dry wit behind his businessman's mask. He learned about her dream of starting a non-profit for single mothers, her love of old films, the quiet strength it had taken to raise a child completely alone. On the 4th night, walking the beach after putting Liam to bed, James led her back to his office and unlocked a drawer. Inside was a small velvet box holding a delicate silver locket, his grandmother's, the only person who'd ever made him feel like more than a Hartwell heir. She taught me legacy isn't about money, he said. It's about the love you leave behind. I want Liam to have this, to know where he comes from, and to know that being a Hartwell doesn't have to define him, just like it doesn't have to define us. Tears stung Melissa's eyes. This wasn't a grand gesture. It was a promise. Her phone rang before she could speak. Ryan, breathless with news. HR had just announced a promotion to Executive Director of Marketing Strategy, reporting directly to the board. Jessica's NDA had been finalized. She'd never speak publicly again. And James had announced sweeping new company policies. On-site childcare in every major office, flexible hours for parents, expanded parental leave for everyone. Before you say anything, James said, watching her face, the promotion was Ryan's ideal weeks ago. I only approved it. The policy changes were already in motion. I just moved them up. You've been busy for someone on vacation, she said. I wanted to clear the obstacles, he said, to show you I'm serious about this, whatever this turns out to be. Melissa looked down at the locket in her palm, a piece of his history, freely given. I'm not ready for marriage, she said softly, but I'm ready to try. For Liam's sake. She met his eyes, and maybe for ours, too. The smile that broke across his face had nothing of the boardroom in it. It was simply, finally real. 6 months later, on Liam's first birthday, Melissa stood on the same stretch of beach and watched father and son build a lopsided sandcastle at the water's edge. The silver locket hung at her neck. No longer just family history, but a symbol of everything they'd built since. The company's annual report had run a photo of the 3 of them at the opening of Hartwell Industries' first on-site childcare center, and the gossip that once threatened to define them had long since gone quiet. "Mama, look," Liam called out, clapping sandy hands, as James planted a twig flag on their sandcastle. Melissa walked toward them, camera raised to catch the moment. No longer the secret single mother hiding behind consignment suit, but simply herself, stronger for everything she'd survived, and certain that every uncertain step had led exactly here. "Are you happy?" James asked quietly as he pulled her close. She watched their son's laughter ripple over the waves, felt the warmth of the man beside her, who had once been a stranger and was now everything. "Happier than I ever thought possible," she said. And in that moment, with the tide rolling in and their son's joy filling the air around them, Melissa understood something she never could predict the day her world fell apart in that conference room. Sometimes the worst endings are really just the start of something far more beautiful.